Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jim Ross. Get ready for a savage primal assault on your ears. He was way up there. And as you know, what goes up must come down. But he's back, and here we go again.
I want to start from nothing.
Well, you nailed it.
So let's get this show on the road. Bottom line, here comes OpieRadio.
Oh, time for another podcast with the Cuban Carl Ruiz, Vic Henley,
Yay.
and Nick Solaris, who I only met recently because I'm not a foodie. Is he a big deal?
He's a big deal.
How is he a big deal?
I'm on this couch. Of course I'm a big deal. I'm on the OpieRadio show. What are you talking about?
And we're off.
And we're up. And we're in another studio. What's going on with us?
This is why I wanted him here in the first place.
This looks like a cabin, though. There's wood everywhere. It's kind of like where the place started off at.
Oh, yeah, just like Carl's creepy cabin.
That little gem.
Wow, is that place scary?
It's not scary.
Yeah,
It's probably gone now because there's a terrible storm outside. It's not very weatherproof.
Oh, you're not going to have a roof.
I just can't believe he actually showed a picture. Well, it's not. The thing he put online, everybody was believing is actually where he's living, and it's not.
Oh, no, it is.
I'll just say it's
No,
not.
that's just where he buries the bodies.
Correct. Thank you, Fargo.
I think we got to take a backhoe to that.
What do you mean?
Behind the cabin?
Ooh, there's some stuff back there.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Not anything Carl did, but there were people that owned that thing before Carl, and I'm convinced that you start digging, you're going to find something.
Well, people on Twitter were having a field day with us. So that's Mrs. Lundgren in there, and that's your partner there in the wood chipper.
Yes. Oh, our listeners are lovely, by the way, because as soon as I drove up to Carl's creepy cabin, that it's known as that now. Now that we have T-shirts and everything, it's becoming its own thing. I thought Fargo immediately.
And that's what everybody latched on
immediately.
to.
Absolutely. But then these people, they weren't happy enough with just the Fargo reference. They're like, "Where's the wood chipper for Opie?"
Oh, they were putting you.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
of course.
Everything you put on the internet, someone comes up with an awful level D joke about Opie. Oh, the wood chipper's Opie's career, and they put like, and they'll put like 9 like emojis, like forcing you to to think it's funny.
Yeah.
I forgot how many people really hate you.
Jesus, here we go again.
It's not true. No, you're
thank
lovely.
You. Oh, he's spinning it this time.
spinning it.
That's
nice.
why he just stopped talking after that.
Yeah,
People
that's a
hate
nice
you.
take. Yeah.
And he stopped talking.
Yeah.
It's a new show. We got to switch
It's a
it up
kinder,
little.
gentler Vic.
Mean Big Henley.
He gives a little meanness, and then he kind of comes back a little bit.
Opie has like a really nice demeanor now, and he really lulls the guests into sleep like with Chris from the record. He's like,
That dude was great.
he just looking at him, we're talking about religion and spirituality, and all of a sudden he's like, Opie's like, how do you make money? I'm like, oh no,
but hold on. To be fair, that was the second job. The first one was like he's talking about spirit, and then suddenly like there's a reference to a shaman. Like, what's that all about?
That shaman. Opie's big on shaman.
That's like saying like I had kale for dinner last night.
See, don't get Nick started.
Shamans are the kale of religion.
Well, no, he was talking about fixing himself and doing a little therapy and meditation. And then I went to the next level and I talked about the shaman again, which is becoming its own thing. Can't wait for the shaman episode.
Shaman's like a recurring character on the
So Vic, I brought Nick in.
Right, I love Nick.
Because Nick is, in our real life, is one of the funnest dudes to hang out with because he knows everything about food.
That is true.
And he's one of my favorite guys.
What's Nick's what's your credentials for the people out there?
I'm a food writer.
Ooh.
I am a video host on something called The Meat Show. I have a new video show coming out imminently, which I will reveal on this podcast.
Oh, wow.
In the future date. But generally, I write about food. I write about restaurants with a particular focus on food that had parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
No kale.
No.
No veggie, no weirdo.
I mean, I will, look, if you pay me to write about those things, I'll do it. Right? Like you'll play those gigs that you don't really want to play, but because the money's right.
Which is all of them for Vic Henley.
Present tense.
Go after me more, Carl. It's funny. Come on, I don't just.
Don't follow it up with niceness.
Don't become
I'm not.
Good.
I'm 0 for 2 bringing girls around Vic Henley.
I have nothing to do with.
Remember you took my wife on a first date in Philadelphia?
No,
I fucking stung, Henley.
She was drinking a lot. And I was working, and it was just, you know.
Marie had a buzz on her.
Totally.
Yeah, since 1994.
She was a fetus.
The year after she was born.
Fetal alcohol syndrome. That explains it now. That explains the size of her head.
Oh God, Vic! I make one joke, and you take everyone to the wood chipper, which is Opie's career.
No, it's like a lollipop head.
You do a little soft hit, right? And Vic's like, oh, I guess it's on. And then he hits her with a nuclear warhead.
Yeah, like I'm doing like little subtle hits. He's like, Marie's a man. I'm like, what?
Where did Dr. Strangelove come from?
But we were just jabbing, and he went for the
Vic
Buster
is an
Douglas.
out-of-control mining cart. Just
Come on. Once you're out of the picture, all bets are off, is all I'm saying. So if you've got any kind of birthmark or a limp, you know, it's turning into everything possible. So back to Nick, yes.
I hear an accent in Nick.
So I never grew up, but I got bigger in the UK, in London. Moved here in '85.
I don't get. You're a lot like Vic. Let me.
Decrepit and old. Is
No.
what you're saying, right?
You've been in.
We both came here at the same time and still have our accents.
That's what
I think is
thank
what he's
you.
trying to
That's what I
say.
was getting at. Because
I've been drinking, so it comes out more. When
because Vic tells me he goes home to Alabama, and they said, "Oh man, you lost your accent." Vic.
They really
That
genuinely. That's how
amazes me.
stupid they are. They're like, we don't even know who you are. I go, I know who you are.
What are those
You're a
things on your
dumbass."
legs? Those are trousers.
like my Cuban family, like, oh, look at Carl with glasses and a hat. Must be nice.
Yeah, must be.
Carl's all
nice.
fancy now. He
Fancy
zips
Carl.
up his.
At least you have a mom that still knows your name.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
the nuclear option.
no, it's true. His mom's taking a couple of hard knocks down through the years.
So wow, you kept your accent. That's a little strange.
Well, there's a lot of things that are strange about me, especially the people that I hang out and eat with, which is these two a lot.
Yeah.
So we've been going out to eat for about a year. I met Carl in Memphis in May, which is this big barbecue competition that's actually happening it starts tomorrow. I'm going to be flying down to Memphis.
So one of the best, we're in Memphis.
It's like Jazz Fest with barbecue.
No, I get it.
It's like Jazz Fest, except no one can spell. And there's going to be a fight.
Well, that's Jazz Fest.
Just so it,
That's Jazz Fest.
It's like Jazz Fest with juggalos.
So think about Memphis in May is they take over a park next to the Mississippi River, and which is not particularly attractive in this part of the country, the Mississippi River. It looks like a mudslide.
They call it Big Muddy for a reason.
So it's the top barbecue guys in the country, and they all compete. And there's different categories, correct, Nick? You have brisket, you have ribs,
Whole hog.
and they have the judges. What's the name of the company that's accredited? It's ACA, whatever the company is that judges these people, whatever.
Oh, some organization.
American.
We don't care about that. it's an inconsequential. We're there for
Did I ever introduce you to my food expert, Nick Solaris?
I'm so glad you brought in an expert there, Carl.
Stormy Daniels' lawyer here.
Just to totally set this up too, I suck at eating. I'm terrible
It
at
looks
it.
like looks like you could get fat
Really?
and should get fat.
Oh, thank you.
That wasn't a compliment.
It sounds better
You
with
look like
the
you do
English
yoga,
accent.
is what I'm suggesting.
I'm terrible at eating, but because of Carl, and I have hung out with Nick as well. You guys talk about food in such a way that is so interesting to me.
Right.
I still don't want to eat half the shit, but I find it fascinating. You've taken the food world and just made it. You just broke it down to the basics, and I can listen to Carl and whoever he brings in talk about food all day long.
Right, like when we communicate, chefs and restaurateurs and food writers, we communicate in shorthand. Like we'll go to a restaurant, we'll be like, Like when decor will be like loud, bright,
Shouty.
right? Because we're just trying to get a point across. Like, hey, how was the burger? Small, frozen,
Right.
and we're done.
Right.
We move on.
When we were at the Ribbon, that's where I met you, Nick.
Right.
And you were drinking, was it bourbon? Help me out.
Yeah, it was a bourbon.
And
Four Roses, maybe, Nick.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
it was Four Roses.
All right, see.
And I started getting into bourbon just a tad because of Carl. He started bringing it into Sirius. It was damn good. And he turned me on to
That's
some
probably,
tequila.
what set
But-
things off.
Yeah.
No, Nick.
But no. Let me finish my
Okay.
point. So this is what, going back to my point, how you guys, talk about stuff, and it's so fascinating to me. You were explaining the whole drops of water in bourbon. I was stupid me.
To open it up a bit.
Stupid me. I was blown away by that. So what's that all about?
Well,
again?
that's the same thing that the Scots do with whiskeys, right? Because it's a very strong alcohol. You're talking about a 45 proof, right? What that water does is it just opens up the palate enough for you to actually appreciate the flavors of not just the alcohol, but what made that alcohol, the barrel, right? Whatever the grain is, whatever went into making that drink, that beverage, is just opened up slightly.
But it's only a couple drops, and
That's all you need,
could,
because you dilute it beyond that point.
right. But you could totally tell the difference between the two.
Well,
One without drops
That's
and
a
one
rhetorical
without.
question, right? Because you tried it and you couldn't believe the difference. Remember? You were like, wow,
yeah.
that really, yeah.
He's right. I was there.
Yeah.
He forgot. He touched
He
him.
forgot. He totally forgot.
That's what happens when you don't eat meat.
I eat meat, you son of a
Memory
bitch.
sucks. Your memory sucks.
Quinoa, trout salad.
No, but we've had trout salad there.
That's why I said it.
You enjoyed the trout salad,
It
you
was
son of a
okay.
bitch.
It's better
I'm
as a
putting my
comedy
boxing
bit.
gloves on for this episode. No, I guess my point is, though, if you didn't really explain that to me, which I really did find fascinating, and you just gave me bourbon without putting the water in, I probably wouldn't have known the difference to a point where I would have not enjoyed the bourbon, if you know what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
So,
But it's like all human endeavors, right? There's various levels of what you can glean from it. Like, you guys are experts in comedy, right? You understand timing and the dead space between punchlines and those kind of things that regular people know something's funny. They don't know why it's funny, right?
I'm going to give you a few numbers of people I worked with over the years. Could you explain that to them?
He's not funny. He belongs in a wood chipper.
That's your career is the wood chipper. emoji. Right.
Flames.
Flames.
Why don't you go back?
Crying, laughing emoji. Crying, laughing emoji.
Why don't you go back to just pushing the buttons? But then you explain that people actually bring their own water for their bourbon. That's crazy to me. And why?
Well,
Because those people are awesome.
Yeah, but think about it. I mean, there's people that will go so far as if the whiskey came from the Highlands of Scotland, they'll want Scottish water, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what should pair with it.
Oh my God! For just a couple drops.
Yeah, well, because
you don't see the insanity in that.
Of course I do, but
Okay,
think
thank
about the
you.
world we live in.
Yeah.
The nuances that people go through in modern life, it's all ridiculous, right? Look at the guitars on the wall here. What do you think those cost? Like, is there any difference between that bass guitar and the PV that you get at like Sam Ash for like $59? Well, to a
Yes.
real bass player there is, but
Yeah.
to the average guy, he's gonna sound terrible on either one. Right?
Good point. Very good.
But that's getting back to the nuances. That's what I love about Carl. Carl is a high-level ninja trained, like worked for Robichon, has worked in but he looks like a complete reprobate. He's a complete hoodlum. Look at him. He looks like he should be washing the dishes, not plating like
His favorite hat
foie gras,
says
right?
dishwasher on it. His favorite hat. His business card says dishwasher. It did.
He turned us on. He turned us on recently to Caviar. Never had Caviar before. It was.
That was my first time, and it was.
Was it really your first?
Yes.
I was amazed by that.
And it was. I couldn't get another. He was making them as quick as he could hand them to me.
I had like a little
like
caviar
shuffling.
shop at the
No,
restaurant.
and once again, they brought the caviar. We were celebrating a little bit, let's just say,
Right.
and the seriousness, he's a goofball, right? But when it comes to no, this is what I like about Carl. Like when it comes to giving you food, He takes it so seriously. It's not fun Carl anymore. He is laser focused. I remember one time you had me trying something and you were mad because you cut the wrong piece or something. Like, no, don't touch that. And then redid the whole thing. Like, you take it really seriously. You saw how he was putting that caviar together the other. Yeah.
The sushi story we've told. I went with him, and I thought the Japanese woman was going to just take her clothes off and jump on him right in the booth because he knew everything to order and how to order it.
Unfortunately, she didn't. And I went home and watched Julia Child reruns.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, what caviar do we have? We had something from...
It was Osetra. It was
middle of the
marginal
road?
at best.
Really?
Yeah.
It was delicious.
But we learned, like you said, now back to both these guys, we learned that it's not Russian caviar that's the best one on the planet. It's
from Iran. Iran makes the best caviar by a lot.
Yeah.
See?
It's beautiful.
See, that's why you got to say fuck Trump, because now we're not going to get the caviar.
Because of Iran? We can still get
What
the
does one
caviar.
thing have to do
No,
with
because
another?
the whole deal that they, ripped up.
The people
really?
that can
That's-
afford it don't probably know him.
I mean, it's kind of like blaming Jeff Sessions. Oh, we can't get Coke anymore from Jeff Sessions. You know, like, we'll be just fine.
Wait till it comes out that he was in a Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, he's a waterhead. He is a waterhead mongoloid. I'm sorry, he's from my state.
So one thing I love going out with Nick is because I don't have to go through the charades of going with civilians to restaurants. You know, like I'll go with a regular person, like, oh my God, look at the waterfall. And oh my God, like the plate's on fire. Like we have no tolerance for any of that.
None of it.
We just go, is it good? Is it not? There's so many things in restaurants that are myths, complete myths.
Right.
I mean,
Can
for
I
example-
start? Can I start with that?
Yeah.
Because I'm a little excited here because this guy's taught me so much. The longest time when I first started getting a little money in my pocket, I thought I had to up my game as far as going to fancier restaurants. Let's call it that, fancier restaurants. I meet this guy, and he's brought us to these holes in the wall.
Both.
In all these cities.
All quality.
And the food is amazing. And I'm like, I am the dumbest person alive that I'm spending so much money for the waterfall and the flaming plates and all that.
But that has its place. Look, special occasions.
Oh, yeah,
right?
of course.
Graduations, whatever, you know.
But I thought you
Eating
couldn't
out
get
of your league.
I thought I thought you couldn't get
That was funny you gave him credit for.
he stopped me in my
Stop
tracks.
right there. Come on.
He stopped me in my tracks on that one. But I always thought, to get a high quality meal, you really had to go to these places and spend twice the money, and it's just simply not true. I know that now.
What I
There
love
are
about Carl.
places.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there are places that are very fancy and they're worth it.
That's true. Yeah,
But
I know that.
These places,
I do know that.
You notice, like it's like they're in the front. There's a picture of the chef, not a giant gold Buddha.
Right.
There's certain things that are gonna
Right.
that are gonna show you. There's no umbrellas in any of the drinks. Nothing has an LED on it.
Well, we went to that down and dirty place near Madison Square Garden. I did that pop up with you. That silly pop up.
Maria Belize, where they make their own great stuff. Wasn't that delicious?
Yeah, they make their own.
They make their own prosciutto. in New York.
prosciutto. And we sat there. The food was ridiculous. And you would never know it if you walked by this place.
And Opie loves it because he can pick up the tab anytime, $12, no matter where we go. He's like, I got it, $12. I got it, $12.
Did you hear the joy right there when he went, wasn't that his tone changed a little bit when he said, because that's how much he really, both these guys, when I go to dinner with them, I'm not even talking. Imagine that.
But you know what's funny? Opie's not a foodie, but he has a laser beam palate. Like he'll eat something like, eh. And I'll eat. I'm like, he's right. You know what I mean? It's not that good. And that's funny because some people, they're not foodies, but they have a palate of a cement mixer. Like they can't taste anything.
Let's not mention the fact that there's chefs that have palates like donkeys' backsides.
Oh my God.
Really?
I mean, just look, it's like musicians. Not every musician is great.
Right.
Not every radio host is great.
Right.
Right.
Not every chef is great. Most chefs are not great chefs.
Can I list all the radio hosts that aren't great now?
Do we have
I've been
time
waiting for this moment.
How much time he's got in his pocket.
We only have this studio for a half hour.
He's been adding to it for years.
Oh boy, have I! So that's sort of the setup, Nick Solaris. And do you write for Eaters Magazine?
I
or-
don't. I'm actually starting my own.
Oh, beautiful!
I'm starting my
Good for you.
own show on YouTube.
Okay.
Which is going to be very meat centric.
I can't wait.
Well, you're going to be on it. What do you mean you can't?
I'm gonna
wait?
be
Are you going to call it the meat show like the other one?
I can't. Unfortunately, I don't own that. But God bless you. They came up with
Certainly.
it. I was a food writer toiling away with putting out what were considered successful articles,
Right.
which were meaningless in the grand scheme of media.
Right.
And then these guys pushed me to do video, and I did this thing called The Meat Show,
Yeah.
which you can find on YouTube. And it's like, it's insane the views that it's done. And
That's great.
like the recognition that I get now, it's like people recognize me in the street, and like that would never happen to some.
So what's going to be the new
Food
YouTube
blogger.
channel?
I don't have the name nailed down
Oh,
yet,
man.
but we'll have that. I'll be back.
All right, we'll figure it
right?
out.
I'm doing
Okay.
all right, Vic?
So,
Carnivore Spectacular.
It's
so
going to be called Carl's Creepy Food Show. Actually, Carl's Creepy Cabin should be like,
Opie's got a career in the wood chipper show food. Emoji,
So-
emoji.
Flame.
So that's pretty much the setup. So today, I think you guys wanted to talk about food myths or restaurant myths.
Well, here's the thing. Nick and I, we have a hobby calling bullshit.
Good
on
hobby.
stuff.
That is
You
a
know,
good hobby.
Like we know so much. We know that so many things that bring you joy are bullshit in the food business. Sometimes I stay quiet. Like someone will be like, "Oh my God, my favorite thing is truffle oil," and I'm like shaking my head. I'm like, "There's no truffles in that oil." Tell him, Nick. Tell him.
truffle oil has no truffles in it. It's a synthetic product.
So how the hell do they get away with
Calling
naming
it.
that? Yeah.
Because, well, first of all, a lot of it comes from foreign places.
Right.
You know, there's the other thing is that there's not, our laws aren't all compatible with each
Right.
other, right? There's dairy standards in Britain that we don't have here and vice versa. And, you know, the USDA has its thing, and that's a labeling thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's called truffle oil. It's not saying it's a truffle. Right. So maybe that's the loophole.
Right.
In
there's
any
nothing
event,
in it.
it's not. It's manufactured. It's almost like, I mean, to us, it smells like petroleum,
Right.
right? Because we know what real truffles smell like.
The
And
base of truffle oil is the exact same base as, say, Mobil 1 synthetic oil for your
right.
car.
In fact,
See?
if your VW bus breaks down, you could probably use truffle oil. to,
Probably use truffle oil. I mean, if
the
you
only
look
thing it's
at
really
it,
good
I
for.
mean, I'm pretty good with oils. It looks like
Transportation.
it looks and feels and tastes like a 5W830. Like that's
Right.
about the right.
You know what it's
Jesus.
good at lubricating, though? Is the check average.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Because, right, you've gone from something that costs like $7 for an order of fries to like $12.95. It's truffle oil, truffle fries.
That's what I was going to
right?
ask you. That's what pisses me off.
Look, we're
That they're
not
getting away with
suggesting. We're
murder.
we're not saying that you're wrong for liking it. Okay, what we're suggesting is you should know what you're getting into, and it's not actually truffles,
Right.
right?
Right.
So when you try a real truffle, like a fresh Alba truffle or a Perigord, when they're in season, which is not every month, when you taste the aromatics and the flavor of that thing, it's not like any truffle oil, right? It's a whole different level.
I tell people all the time. I said, "Do you love truffle oil?" "Oh, I love it." "You're gonna hate truffles." You know how many times I've been with somebody and they got a couple more bucks than they should have, and they told the guy to keep doing it. And there's only one person at the table with an honest palate. And I'd love try the truffles. Just tastes like dirt. Exactly.
Right,
That's what it
exactly.
is. It's a tree tumor in the
right,
dirt.
tree tumor that was dug up by a pig.
Yeah, by a pig.
Can we really dumb this down? Like basic stuff's at a restaurant, like the breads, the salads, the olive oil. Like give us.
Where's that list?
I think most restaurants, the bread is bullshit. Every once in a while, you go to a place that
Well, people
the
don't-
bread is fantastic.
People usually don't make their own bread. It comes from somewhere else.
Right.
And as far as salads are, probably the more organic or the more exotic it is, the chances are that some day laborer was peeing on it are pretty high.
Well, look, there is
Enjoy your
something.
pea Caesar.
I'll say this: I was in a restaurant in Little Italy. I don't want to name the name.
Please don't, just for out of
No
embarrassment.
shit, because it's Little Italy.
If only
I'm not
those
dumb.
stereotypes were true. That's the New York we wish we still lived in.
I know, right?
I was turned off to bread almost forever because this restaurant went through a lot of bread, pasta joint, right? And I could see into the kitchen, which, by the way, was disgusting. You should never be able to see into a kitchen at a restaurant if it's disgusting. Some of the ribbon we went to where you could see them working, and it's a beautiful kitchen, everything's spotless. This thing had everything piled up. You could just almost see the rats just, chomping at the bit to get to the pots and pans. But anyway, I saw people that worked at the restaurant reworking the bread bowls Like, so the bread that people weren't eating at a table,
We'll
they
go
put,
back into the.
I was watching this whole thing. I'm like, I can't believe that this is in the open like this. It wasn't really in the open. Like I was at a table where I could see in the kitchen, that type of thing. But still, I'm not the only one sitting at that table and taking a peek where I was peeking. And I saw them picking through the bread bowls that were on tables, seeing which ones were still okay and putting it back into the main bread bowl to make new bread bowls. And I was done at that point. And I'm not a germaphobe.
I'm totally looking for some bread now. That didn't gross me out at all.
You have never heard of this?
No, of course I've heard.
okay.
I've seen it. I've trained it. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. You need me on that wall.
Carl, you were recently telling me, too, that if a restaurant's doing really bad, they will recycle food, right?
Yeah. For example, specials, right?
No, I mean recycle the actual food. They will take your plate, see what you didn't eat.
I've seen it.
You have seen that.
I have seen it.
And then rework it in the kitchen to make it all nice.
Because I saw it once.
You saw it.
I said, if they're doing this, chances of them paying me on time are pretty thin.
What were they doing? Do you remember specifically what?
Yeah, because I'm the one that did it.
What was it?
Just because things are bad don't mean I'm not good at it.
I know.
Actually,
Wait,
it means you are good at it.
Wait, they made you do it?
Yeah. Well, we took the plate. The person.
I got to help you out a little bit. This was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was last Thursday.
So the person ordered the salmon and thought that didn't like it, right? So there was another order for a salmon coming in. So the guy broke the salmon with the fork and didn't like it, right? Just took a little piece out of it. So they brought the
customer.
Yeah, they brought it back, and then it was like an ER room. Spatula. We took the salmon up. We took the mashed potatoes off the bottom. We put them on a new plate. Then you twist it. We dumped the sauce from the old plate like this, fresh parsley. Then we put the salmon back together and just pureed a little bit of mashed potatoes on top of it as glue. And then we put a little parsley on top of that. $29.95. Wow. You deserve that if you eat salmon with mashed potatoes. You barbarian. Have some culture.
Oh, my. And the other thing that he taught me that in general, specials are kind of bullshit because it's stuff that they desperately want to just get out of the kitchen.
The closest thing to the garbage can in a restaurant is the specials. and it's just a way to control costs, right? So as a chef, you'd walk through you go through your refrigerator, you go through your pantry, and you'd start to see things that are, starting to get, remember, it's a restaurant, right? So you have to be ready. You don't know how many people are coming, so sometimes you have too much of one thing or too little of whatever. And you start looking at the meat. If the meat starts looking a little bit funky, then you braise it and you do certain things, and that's where the specials come from. It comes from things that are starting to decay.
Yeah, I used to always the fish market here. That's why I said seafood frittata a minute ago. But if you see on Sunday brunch, it's whatever fish that they probably got the fish on the Thursday before,
Right.
And then that's whatever's left over, and then they just throw it in an omelet and call it seafood frittata, and you don't know that it's been sitting there for 5 days.
Yeah, there's very, very few people that get seafood deliveries on Sundays.
Well, it doesn't matter when they get it, because the boats only run 2 times a week.
That's what I was right.
I mean, I don't care where your little truck's going. You know what I mean? But
No, that's what I was trying to get to, Carl. Yeah.
That fish is dead, and it's been dead. And most fish that you get, like in New York City,
Yep.
probably, even the super fresh stuff, probably a week old.
Yeah.
See how much we learned.
Well, I learned this, I think, from Carl, too. I learned a lot. Sushi.
Yeah.
Fresh sushi, done right, it's supposed to be frozen.
Well, no, there's some
To prepare it,
there's
right?
some that you freeze, like a tuna and salmon, because what happens is they freeze them right on the boat sometimes.
Right.
Very light freeze, and that kills certain parasites.
Okay.
So cold kills parasites just like hot
Hot,
does.
right.
And yeah, but there's some shady shit that goes
What is
on.
it?
Well,
What-
speaking of
Yeah, go ahead.
of sushi in Japan, I think the biggest bullshit of all is Kobe beef.
I
Right?
agree.
How many places do you see Kobe beef on?
Right.
Kobe beef is, first of all, most Japanese beef is not from Kobe.
But first, explain what Kobe beef is.
So Kobe beef is let's explain what Wagyu is. Wagyu is Japanese beef. It's a particular breed. It's very expensive. It's very fatty, very marbled. It's way richer in taste than anything that we eat in this country. It's very expensive. People in this country have crossbred that animal with like domestic black Angus. We call it Wangus, right?
Wangus.
Wagyu and Angus, Wangus. It still produces good beef, but it's not the same thing as Japanese beef. So to call something Kobe or Wagyu, it's bullshit. It isn't. It isn't that thing.
Right.
When you've had that beef, it's completely like nothing else in the world, right? And you must have cooked with it. It doesn't cook like anything else.
And I'll tell you,
Aren't they the massage? Isn't that the massage of the cow?
Sake massages
Sake
and beef, special diets. I visited a place in Japan where they feed them olives at the end of their life, right? To fatten them up and give them marbling.
It's like Spanish hams, the La Pata Negra. It comes from a special black pig, and it's one of the most expensive hams that you could ever buy. And at 6 months before they kill him, they just feed him Spanish chestnuts. This pig is delicious. Oh my!
That's what I said about my first ex-wife.
But I've worked with Wagyu a lot, and I got to be honest. I don't know if who's going to agree with me or not. The best state to eat it in is raw. I don't think it cooks well. I think it turns steamy and fatty, and it just doesn't work. Heat doesn't do well with that. And it's so rich that I used to just slice it.
Just a tartare, nothing else?
No, just eat it. It's so good. It's a little bit of salt, and you just eat that meat, and it's just perfect.
So Kobe beef, so it's all bullshit?
Most of it.
90, unless you're spending, look, if and this is talking at a restaurateur might pay, right? If they're paying $15 or $20 a pound for USDA prime rib steaks, Wagyu is between $70 and $130 a pound. Okay, so that $18 hamburger that you think that you're getting ain't Kobe.
And so basically they get away with it because they know most of the people that order it don't even know it's not.
You're just
Kobe.
seeing the word and believing.
They've never tasted it. They have no reference point.
It's also not a legal designation. Right.
Yeah, this is why I like talking to you guys, because then I dumb it down because I'm just I don't have this knowledge, but I've certainly had Kobe in question marks quotation, excuse me, for over the years. I didn't know what I was eating. I never thought it was special. I'm like,
because it probably wasn't.
Yeah, no. Now I'm learning that.
Oh,
but I was talked into it.
Yeah, you got to go to dinner with them.
Yeah,
we went somewhere just to get a drink. And they handed Nick the menu, and it was like the size of a phone book, and all the pages were laminated. And if he'd have had a gun on him, he would have shot the lady in the face. They were so aggravated, like, this is everything wrong with what we believe in.
Well, why is that? Obviously, in a diner, you could get away with that, but
see, look at the disgust on his face.
No, not even in a diner.
No, but hold on a second. It's true that a diner has everything on the menu. But that doesn't mean that you should order everything on the menu at a diner.
That's a perfect point. You know how many idiots, how many mouth breathers I go out with? We go to the place and it's like, Harry's Lobster Bar. And the guy's like, can I get the chicken? What's wrong with you? If there's a name of anything on the menu is on the wall, buy that. Like whenever I travel and I'm in a place where I know it's going to suck, I ask, what's the best selling thing? Because number one, chances are, the guy with the one shingle tooth in the back, he's been making that the most. So he's proficient at that. Number two, they'd have to reorder the stuff to make that. So it's probably the freshest. So I always get the most popular thing, even if it's not what I want to eat. People are so stupid. They think a restaurant's magic. It's not. There's dummies in there. There's poison in there. There's bacteria in there. Try to keep it straight. And you know who gets sick a lot? Women, because they go to shitty restaurants and they get the salad. And the guy's keeping the salad in his shoe.
When I do see a thick menu, I get anxiety because then next thing you know, I see 4 or 5 things I want to eat. And that's gotta be bad in the restaurant business.
I get anxiety complete opposite. I'm like, the minute I open the menu, if I have to turn a page, I know everything's frozen.
Why?
Because there's no way to keep that inventory.
Right.
In most places, that's actually the case. And we're talking about diners that have those voluminous menus.
Cheesecake Factory. That's got a
I've never actually been to a Cheesecake
That's a
Factory.
diner with cheesecake.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm just saying. I'm naming a place that's not a diner. And
if you see Cheesecake Factory, their growth has been stunted because it's too much. It's overwhelming. There's nothing that people love. They keep trying different stuff, right? But people are creatures of habit. They go and they get the French fries at McDonald's over and over and over for 30 years.
Right.
That works in their benefit. Every
Right.
time one of these restaurants tries to expand their menu, they actually shrink their customer base because people don't care about what the hell you're trying to do. They care about one thing, you know? And when I've owned restaurants, people want the same thing. I'm like, oh, try this. They're like, I don't want to. This makes me happy. And then you learn that as a chef. Like, just make 3 things and make sure they're good.
You know,
Don't suck.
yeah.
That's like grandmothers. Most of them, awful, hacky cooks.
But they make 3 or 4 things,
But
by God.
that dizzy old lady, she'll make that apple pie money every time. Doesn't mean she's good. Bring her to the kitchen with me. I'll crush your grandmother. I will embarrass her.
Yeah, but in all fairness,
Mush her face in the
I'll
mashed
put a cheese
potatoes.
grater. He's beating her with a cheese grater.
It's true, but
wooden
what's
spooner.
he going to give you at Christmas? A lump of coal. Grandmother will give you something of value, right?
Okay.
No, what I hate hearing is this recipe's been passed down for many generations.
So let me tell you about this. So everyone that has their grandmother's recipe,
yeah, it's the grandma.
throw
recipe.
it in the garbage. And I'm going to explain to you one thing. I'm going to explain to you why. And people don't even think about it, right? Is it say it has eggs in it, beef? Like, let's say a meatball recipe. Let's just use meatballs, right?
Yours is posted on the
classic
board, by the
grandmother
way.
recipe.
Classic grandmother recipe. And every time I've had the recipe, when they're like, this is my grandmother's recipe, in my mind, I'm like, I wish I could parachute out of this dinner party because this is a shit show. And I'll tell you why. The 40-year-old, 50-year-old recipe, number one, the cattle that we were using that your grandmother had was completely different than the cattle now, right? The eggs are even a different size, let alone a different protein content. The Parmesan cheese is completely different. The way the molecular structure of the breadcrumbs, it's not even real breadcrumbs anymore. So you're following this recipe, it's a failure.
That made sense back in the day.
Right, but now...
But all the ingredients have changed.
So now you have to, like, when I get old recipes, when I have to work with old recipes, I boost it up by 30% because the food literally is 30% less powerful now than it used to be. So
There's also
an extra egg I have to add. I have to add extra milk because everything is junk.
It's also that our palates have changed. What
Yes.
we consider salty, what we consider sweet, what we consider spicy is completely different.
Right.
Right? We live a Technicolor taste world compared to what even 15, 20 years ago when you started cooking, right?
Yeah.
Think about how much MSG is now in high-end food. It was always in junk food, right?
Right.
MSG has always been dumped into junk food because it makes things actually taste more vibrant.
right.
But now people are using it. It's legitimized, right? The whole notion of umami. You know about umami?
Yeah.
No.
The fifth sense?
The fifth sense. Explain
The-
to
no,
him.
I'm sorry. Cut that.
seventh
It's,
sense.
it's the sixth sense, right?
No, that
the
was
sixth.
that was Bruce Willis.
Right.
Then it's the fifth taste.
Right. So explain so there's things that have umami in them. And that means it's basically an indescribable thing that completes the dish, right?
But it is
Parmesan
kind of
cheese, soy sauce. Go ahead.
it's they're sweet, they're salty. Well, umami is kind of a combination of both.
Right.
Right. And it's very big, especially in Japanese food and Japanese culture. And it is all about there's things that are redolent in it with it, right? Mushrooms, soy sauces. These are things that sort of really punch up other foods. Anchovies, American cheeseburgers, very rich in umami. Add cheeseburgers to everything is what I'm suggesting.
I was hanging out with this girl and she just learned that word. I wanted to strangle her.
What, cheeseburger?
No.
I would strangle that.
Wow, that was beautiful. So she was like, oh, the umami in this. I'm like, it's ranch dressing. Lady. There's no umami, okay?
But there is MSG in that.
There is. But it's funny, yeah. Top high-end chefs every day are making their food taste more like fast food, unfortunately, because that's where people's palate is. If you ate in restaurants that I ate 15, 20 years ago, you would need a bucket of salt. It was so bland.
Yeah.
It was so bland because people's palate was a lot softer.
Well, aren't the palates just dead? Like with all the salts and oils, doesn't that kind of
they're
destroy
just,
your taste
I would
buds?
say they're dead, but there's a lot of people that are numb to nuance.
Right.
You know, before the nuances of cooking a chicken fricassee with, just putting fresh sage or tarragon, people would pick up on it. You know, like the chicken that we were at a beautiful restaurant today. That's old school food.
Barbuto.
Barbuto, Jonathan Waxman, roasted chicken with a little olive oil on it and tarragon.
Did you get the invite, Vic?
I didn't get invited.
Yeah, I didn't get the invite for this
I
one.
think you guys were recording a podcast at the time.
Megan got invited.
Can we go to sushi for a second? So that's one thing.
I'm so fat. I'm like, all right, let's go.
We were just getting up to
He thought
leave.
you were just ending the
I'm
show.
like, sweet podcast, bro.
I love my sushi. I love spending extra money on sushi. And when you start doing that and realizing the quality of the sushi, you can never go back.
No.
And to me, it's all about the tuna. And I read an article, maybe you could back me up on this, Nick, but most tuna is bullshit. It's not real. And it's down to a percentage, like I think in New York City, could you help me out? It's like less than 10% of the sushi restaurants are actually serving tuna, and it's another fish.
There is a lot, and fish in general is a really bad.
I'm an expert at shrimp bullshit, seafood
But
bullshit.
I love tuna sushi. That's my favorite.
No, but if you go to a high-end sushi restaurant,
Right.
and you see the guy cutting the toro in front of you,
Yeah.
chances are that's the
Sure.
real deal, right? And
real
the
tuna
Japanese are very, I mean, the way that Japanese kill fish compared to the way that we kill fish in the West,
Completely different.
it's completely different. The way we kill fish is actually not good for the meat
Right.
because we let the thing suffocate. And that releases all kinds of hormones and enzymes, and it makes the fish not as good as the
And
way
how
the
do they
Japanese-
kill it?
There's a certain technique. You angle the fish and you kill.
Fucking strangle it!
No,
Like your career.
No,
not your career in a wood
Wood
chipper.
chipper, turd.
Turn emoji.
Well, how do they do it for real?
There's actually it's you have to learn how to do it. I don't know how to do it.
they will slice the neck, and then they will literally stick this wire down the spine,
Jesus.
which just basically knocks out. It basically knocks out any kind of, any endocrines, any kind of enzymes, anything. Nothing is happening, right? It just basically puts
Still
that
alive.
flesh into this state of stasis. It's just dead, right? When we kill a
So it
fish,
doesn't get the chance to release all the stuff that makes
all of those, right? The
fish
adrenaline,
bad.
the adrenaline dump from
Right,
death
right.
and from suffocating and
And
all
some
of that.
prehistoric fish like skate, they piss through their meat. So literally, the way they go to the bathroom is they filter through the meat. It comes out through the skin. So that's why they're like, oh, that tastes like ammonia. I'm like, that's piss, honey. you're literally eating
right.
piss. You're literally a piss eater.
So most of the tuna is BS.
Well, here's the
in
thing.
sushi joints.
That article is right and wrong. So what it's saying is most of it isn't tuna, but most of it isn't that type of tuna. That's the problem. There's
It's
a lot of
mislabeling.
lower grade tunas. And some places even scam it, and they'll put a porpoise in there, like a dolphin, which kind of has the same.
What do you mean by lower grade tuna?
Lower grade
They're
tunas
sneaking
is,
fish into the
for
tuna.
example.
Certain species into the tuna category.
Like, say you get an albacore or something like that,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of bad, like, each tuna species has maybe 10 subspecies. It's a pretty proficient, tuna is pretty wide what it carries.
And
it goes
diverse.
from a fish the size of a guppy to one that looks like a 60-mile-an-hour torpedo, right? But what's funny is you can take like an albacore or like what you would make tuna fish out of, right? Make it a steak. And what the companies do is they take it and they cut it in portions and they run it through carbon dioxide and it turns it red. And then they'll sell it as tuna. So whenever you go, if you ever look at a frozen tuna box, turn it around, it says colored by carbon dioxide. They have to put it on there. So most of what you're eating is tuna, but since they carboned it or put carbon dioxide through it, they gassed it. And no one be surprised. Most of the tomatoes you eat, they do the exact same thing. So most of your tomatoes live in carbon dioxide, and like literally like putting a tomato in the muffler of your car, and that's what makes them red, because they're picked so early that they ripen inside of some Walmart truck on the way to the thing.
oh my god.
So most tomatoes are green. So
Opie's being faced with this this dystopian future of food.
yeah, and the funny
not gonna
thing
eat
is, it's
another meal.
and you're
Last
gassing
meal.
all these produce, but the produce never gets cooked. You're actually just eating it. Whereas the tuna, at least you got a shot. You know what I mean? Maybe,
Right,
maybe
wow, right.
somebody will do like one of those old pepper sear tuna jobs.
Right,
you know what I mean?
slice it like the cheese.
But most of that tuna is gassed. There's so much things that go out there. Like whenever you see something that's less than $30 and it has like I never like to get things like lobster mac and cheese because the odds of it being lobster are almost zero. So they make this synthetic lobster. Now, what they do is on these boats, they catch a lot of different fish and shad and all this garbage, and they have a machine, and they take all this fish, and they compress it to look like lobster meat. And then they put red dye around it, and they slice it, and then there you go.
Oh
There's your
my
lobster.
It's like that crab you see in the delis, which is all the same shape with the same tinge of red on the
KRAB.
outside.
Right. Not real.
not real. Pollock.
What about red snapper? I like a good red snapper.
That's probably the most forged fish.
I think Fred snapper is that is like it's like 78% or something of like of snapper in New York State was mislabeled.
Oh yeah, it's not. And I'm Cuban, and we know red snapper, right? So we only eat king red snapper, which has the yellow stripe. So they have it's a very delicate fish. So through nature, it's developed this yellow stripe so that its predator thinks it's an eel when it's swimming through the water, and they leave him alone. But that snapper is absolutely delicious. Now, on either side of it, there are at least 100 different snappers, and they suck balls.
Really?
Every time I'm somebody like, "Oh, you're Cuban. We made red snapper." I'm like, "No, you didn't. You made a giant swimming disappointment fish."
That's my second ex-wife.
It's so crazy, and I just watch people, and they struggle because they want to do things right. You know, they want to do the right thing, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" You know, and it's the research is right under the surface. It's literally right under the surface, and no one really talks about it.
Now, continuing with fish, we've overfished the oceans. So
Who cares?
no, but
I have no sympathy for that.
I'm not-
I'll be dead. I don't care what happens.
no, I'm
to
not.
you.
I'm not going with the whole global
right, Al,
warming
go
thing.
on.
But as far as restaurants go, they've been running out of fish. So now they've been serving fish they never would have served many, many years ago, and they just changed the names of these fish to make them sound exotic.
Monkfish is the perfect. Monkfish used to be called dogfish.
Dogfish.
Who's going to buy dogfish?
Right.
No one bought dogfish.
Right.
Now it's monkfish. It sounds celestial and
Right.
sort of, like
It's still not that good.
it's.
No,
it
but
tastes like dogfish.
But they romanticize it, they serve it with all the sauces and stuff because it's not that great of a fish, but it's because we overfish the oceans, right? And so you still want fish at your restaurant, so that's when they started. I think the other one is Chilean sea bass, isn't it? Isn't that right?
Patagonian toothfish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
There
Yes.
you go,
exactly.
right.
But they never served that back. You never.
Because who's
ordered
going to
it.
eat Patagonian toothfish?
Right. But then
Just
also-
like Carl said.
It sounds like a sexual perversion, right?
But then all of a sudden they
Like,
realized.
that was my third wife.
I was going to go there.
I know. I caught you that. I got you that.
The
you cut
wheels
'em off.
turning.
But then they just changed the name to Chilean sea bass, and everyone
And
thinks
now
it's
it's
amazing
exotic and
and
it's,
exotic, and you could spend, you could charge $30.
Wasn't there
whatever.
the dolphin fish is...
There's a couple porpoises that you can eat.
Right.
Dolphins are actually delicious,
Really?
but there's a lot of different dolphins.
Right.
Mahi's actually considered a dolphin.
I thought it was a dolphin fish.
Yeah,
was
it's a
one of the-
dolphin.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There's a lot of dolphins,
But you mentioned Chilean sea bass.
which sucks, by the way.
No, I know
But you know
that.
that like Maine uni
Right?
can come from Chile.
Yeah. Really?
It makes no sense.
Wait,
right?
what do you mean?
Because the Maine shuts down their uni reserves a couple of months every few years.
Right.
The state of Maine.
The state of Maine,
Okay.
who has, you know what uni is?
Yeah,
Sea
yeah,
urchin?
yeah, yeah.
So sea urchin is
Gonad.
very big in Japan, big in Santa Barbara, California,
Right.
and it also grows in Maine. Now, what happens is when they shut down those things, the Sea Urchin Association, whatever the trade group is, was able to persuade the government to allow them to import Chilean sea urchin and sell it as Maine sea urchin, and it doesn't taste the same. I've had chefs who were like, "It's a complete." You would be able to tell, like it might be the same species, but it's not the same product, right? In the same way that like you go to Red Lobster, that's not like going to a seafood. That's a langoustine versus a Maine lobster.
Oh, absolutely. Lobsters are so scammy too, man. I mean, unless you give. One time a chef told me make a lobster mac and cheese for the restaurant, and I said okay. So I made a mac and cheese, and then I steamed a lobster and put it right next to it. I said, he goes, what the hell is this? I'm like, lobster mac and cheese. He goes, put them together. I'm like, you put them together. And it was one of the best-selling things because people got the practicality of it. They were like, wow, it's $30. Oh, shit, a lobster. And it worked. And I did it just to prove a point. Like, just be honest with people. Serve the steak with the fat. Like, give them that size. Some people might want it. Some people may not want it.
Right.
And food has gotten so it's not honest anymore. You know, you used to go to the store and you'd get a banana and or free range meant free range. I remember the first time I went to a chicken farm and I saw free range, right? So they had the regular chickens, which let me tell you, let me start from the beginning of a chicken farm. A lot of things don't bother me. But there was one thing, and there was a killing zone in there. Rah! It did not bother me at all, right? I'm like, everything's dying on that side, everything's living on this side. I get it. But they're showing me the chicks, the little chicks. Now, they're really cute. Even for me, that's dead inside. I think a little chicken's cute for 5 minutes, and then I'll kill it. But the guy goes, "Oh, let's go into the chick room." I'm like, "Woo, chick room, sweet!" So you go in there, and the room looks like a lab, like it just in a shelf, like drawers. And I open the drawer, and there's full of live little chicks. They keep them in these drawers. And I'm like, "Shut up!" I'm like, "Open that drawer. Oh my God, more chickens. Open that drawer. Oh my God, this room's full of chickens." And they're just in, and you would open it, and they look at you, tweet, 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 tweet. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want them to know me." Like, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm running the camp here. You know what I mean? Wow. It blew my mind. There's in complete darkness, just a thing. And then they put them on a little conveyor belt, and you see them.
Not even a light? Nothing?
No, they're good. They're in there, and they're just in a dark in a drawer, like you would keep a sock.
They don't give a fuck, Vic. We need our chicken.
And then we go, and then the best is like, well, that's the free range side, and this is the non-free range side. So I'm like, they look the same. They said, no. See, there's a door over there where they can go to the little yard. So let me tell you what chickens do with free range. So chickens, there's a reason they call you chicken, right? Because you don't want to do something, right? So I watched for 20 minutes. The toughest chicken would look out the door and be like, tell the other chickens, fuck that, bro. And they would all, so the free range ones were just huddled around the door, and then the other ones were just sitting in the dark. That's the only difference.
He's right.
Man.
When they say free range or cage free, all it means is they have a door so they could go outside. That's it.
But they don't go outside.
No,
they're chicken.
But then, but what was it? What does this? The FDA or whatever the hell?
Yeah,
they said as long as you give them an option to go outside, you could call your eggs cage free or free range eggs or chickens or whatever. But it's all bullshit. They're not going outside. Is his point.
God.
And the thing is you know, everybody's amazed, but it's everybody's fault because there's no reason you should have the access that we have. You know, there's parts of if we ate properly, there'd be times there wouldn't be beets, guys. You go to the supermarket and there wouldn't be a beet. That you would go sometimes and there wouldn't be celery, right? That's why everyone knew how to pickle things and can things on their own. Because you would take the Bounty and then turn it into jams, jellies, pickles, and you would do all this stuff, and then you would move through the year like a normal person.
Right.
But you want to live in New York City, and it's the middle of January, and it's like, I want a parrot rainbow beet, and they have it. And for them to have it, there for $2.99 a pound, a lot of bad shit has to happen. You know what I mean? That nobody wants to talk about. You know what I mean? For you to have a chicken breast the size of your head. Right?
Yeah, they're big.
Bad shit happened. A lot of creepy stuff, a lot of backyard deals, a lot of backhanded deals, a lot of hormones, a lot of steroids. All this stuff happened so that you can take your little styrofoam package and say, I'm having chicken tonight. And that's
paleo.
It is.
So people, it's our own fault. It's people's own fault. You know, it used to be, can I get a chicken? No more chicken.
Yeah, we're
When's
out.
our chicken?
Right.
June and chicken.
Right.
We got chickens in June. And you're like, okay. So when the chickens would come, you would confit the chicken. You'd preserve the chicken. You would make chicken stock. That was real life. Now it's like, I want a black bass right now. Bad shit has to happen for you to be able to do that. Wow. You know?
Is that
Get this guy
amazing?
monkfish.
No.
The chicken thing, I was online once and they showed like a healthy plump chicken from back in the day.
Right.
Compared to what we consider a healthy plump chicken.
Oh my God.
It's night and day.
It looks like a pigeon.
Right.
It looks
The
like a
old
pigeon.
one does.
The old school look like a pigeon, and they're like, fuck that. People want plumper chickens, and then they figured out how to raise them faster. So like,
It's like
by
the beginning of the porno career, the end of the porno career.
Exactly.
That was a perfect
But
analysis there.
from the birth of the chicken to your plate, it's insane how.
I think
how many days is it now?
I think it's up to 90 days you
Yeah.
get full chicken.
Yeah.
90 from a little chicken in a dark
A tiny
drawer.
chicken that you like. I go to these petting zoos with my little kids, and we're petting that thing, and in 90 days, that's a full Yes, plump chicken on
You
your
want to hear
plate.
something? You want to hear something?
How
fun?
long did it
Bigger
used to
than-
be?
But how are they doing that?
Like a fucking chicken. A
I mean,
year.
a chicken,
A year, I was
chicken,
gonna say,
chicken
8 months.
will live 2 years. I've had chicken that 18 months old.
Yeah.
So there's a restaurant in Japan where they specialize in the mother and and the child.
You can't even say serious. You can't even say
it's so
serious.
evil.
Oh my God!
So you eat like a really fresh bird, like 3 months,
Right.
and it's like really tender and it has no flavor.
Right.
And then you get this hen that's 18 months old, and it's a little tough and gnarly, but you know what? That thing is like, it's like Vic. It's lived. you know, it's like, that thing has
Thank you,
lived.
Nick.
It's got game in it. It's got funkiness, you know?
But no
It
liver.
really is like Vic.
No liver.
Friend and
I tried. You know,
talk to your
repeat it.
friend
Not all
over and
gonna be
over
gems.
for too long.
But how are they plumping up the chicken so quickly?
Hormones.
It's all hormones, and steroids.
Yeah,
Wow.
steroids.
Can I change gears a little bit? Parmesan cheese. My family they love it. I fucking hate it.
I fucking hate you.
No, it's not. It's not the fresh Parmesan cheese. I'm talking about the shit.
They like
that
the old Kraft in the
Well,
green can.
Yeah, but
I
that is,
hate
first
that.
of all, that's
I knew you were going to say that.
My point
Yeah,
is,
but
I'm no fan of the can.
no that's not cheese.
I started earlier by saying I don't know shit about food in general, but I know I have no doubt in my mind. Thank you. You beat me to the punch, but there's filler or something.
Yeah,
in that.
there is. There
when,
is.
When you're sprinkling it from a bottle or whatever, and then you go to a restaurant and they're scraping it off fresh for you, it's two different things.
My friend would my friend would go and when they would have a dish with Parmesan cheese, he would take out his lighter and put it against the cheese. And if it turned yellow, it was real, and if it turned brown, it was fake because you'd burn the filler.
What's the filler?
The filler could be sawdust. It
Yeah,
could be
they've
literally sawdust. It could be
I
whatever.
mean, I think that's
I've been
less.
convinced over the years that it was sawdust, but
Yeah.
Sawdust is very popular.
Well, so think
What do
about
you mean? What?
sawdust is organic. It's just
Yeah,
wood.
it's wood.
and it's so thin that you're going to digest it.
Right.
It's going to probably melt into
you probably eat a lot more sawdust than you think, my friend.
what is it in?
A lot of stuff. You
Like
know,
what? Give me a few more.
Like pre-made meatballs, a binder for jalapeno poppers, very low-grade commercial food. You know, like when your wife thinks that she's a chef, so she buys all the frozen hors d'oeuvres for that shitty cocktail party.
Right.
Yeah, sawdust party.
Wow.
Good
Highly
job, Martha
flammable.
Stewart. Martha Stewart, you loser.
So are they doing the sawdust for the Parmesan
Yeah,
cheese?
so
a little bit?
you don't want. I don't think you ever want to buy pre-shredded anything, whether it's beef,
Right.
right? I mean, really, you should ultimately have the butcher grind it for you,
Right.
or grind it yourself.
Right.
And the same with cheese. Like, who knows what's in that cheese? You know, when you get a wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano, that's real Parmesan cheese. If it doesn't say Reggiano on it, it's not. Look, the government in Italy is very strict about what they designate as real Italian cheese. So you can look to those places in the same way that you look at wine appellations, right?
Right.
Or like champagne, right? Those things are regulated by the government.
Right.
Craft is not regulated by the Italian government
Craft
to
is the
uphold
government.
Italian culture. You know what I mean?
But that's
Like-
but you bring up a great point, right? So when I go to a supermarket, I suffer because I'm used to buying things in primal cuts, right? Like I go to a supermarket and who the hell wants to buy a thing full of drumsticks? That's scary. Like I got to look at this chicken. So like my friend has 2 kill houses in Union City. I go look at the live chickens, and sometimes if I see a cute little snappy guinea hen that gets my eye, I'll kill that one. You know what I mean? But let me tell you something. A freshly killed chicken, first of all, you can't eat it right away. You got to let it rest for a day, but it's delicious. It just tastes better. You know, it doesn't have that refrigerator. When I eat chicken from a supermarket, I'm like, why is it yellow? Chickens aren't yellow, bro. Like, why is this
Right.
chicken yellow?
Right.
No one walks to the supermarket and goes, that's not the color of chicken skin. That shouldn't be the color of chicken skin. The bones have no development. When you eat the fried chicken, like with cheap chicken or commercial chicken, there's no way around it. I mean, chicken has surpassed beef, I'm sure, by now.
It's the most popular protein
Right.
in the States.
But when I bite it and I see the clear white bone on a chicken, I'm like, did this thing even walk?
it didn't even use those
my
bones.
God,
Like-
really?
Yeah.
Well, those things, they barely provide any kind of skeletal structural integrity, right? They're so
Yeah.
like, you can snap them.
Oh, you
know?
can take a giant chicken and literally break them in half. There's no, the bones are so soft. You ever try to pull the wishbone out of a real chicken? You can't. You got to use a knife. With the commercial chickens, I used to sit there and boom, 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 like grenade clips.
Wow.
Bop, bop. And if you look at, you ever finish or eat a roasted chicken and then you look at its carcass, it's tiny compared to the amount of meat that was on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So if you watch these chickens right before they kill them, they're very clumsy, and a lot of them break their legs and they have to kill them right away, and because they're fake. They've been so juiced up that they're basically like from New Jersey, like dudes from New Jersey. Like Big Guido just gets knocked out one shot. He hasn't done legs for fucking 10 years.
Just buys and tries.
Just
baby.
buys and tries.
Tries.
So he's looking through the tent top, but one girl with 3 sangrias in her punches him in the face, and he's night.
Wow, this is fascinating. What else? What else about restaurant myths? Or you know, like,
Well,
you know what being like kind of a newbie to this whole world. I want to hear more stuff like the sawdust, stuff like that will just blow me and Vic's minds, because you didn't know about the sawdust.
I know Geta and Scrapple, and those are.
Yeah.
They would when you're poor in the Depression, you started throwing stuff in, but those were usually grains. It wasn't sawdust.
Yeah,
But
Vic Kelly brings up in Mississippi, and it's in small parts of Mississippi, there's a thing called the slug burger. And it's slug burgers during the war. You know, bullshit wasn't during the war, just poor Southerners.
No, but it was during the Dust Bowl.
Was
That's
it during the Dust Bowl?
Yeah. So
they would take soybeans and mix them with beef, and then fry it with a little bit of icebox mustard. It's kind of delicious sometimes.
yeah, listen, like
I don't like it. I've had it. I know what he's talking about. I could.
You hate it.
Well, yeah, because I like a real hamburger. So we used to
what's
get
funny?
those at lunch. We got the shitty ones at lunch.
So slug burgers are
Yes,
having
at
a
school.
resurgence. Like there's a place that my friend owns. It's called Hugh Babies in Nashville. Now he's going to have a couple.
fantastic. Pat Martin.
Pat Martin.
One of the great pit masters.
One of the great pit masters in the country. And Pat brought back every Friday at his place, you can get a slug burger. So the first time I see someone, it was like some hipster eating the slug burger. Isn't this awesome? And there's some old Southern guy who goes, boy, ain't you stupid or something? We ate that because we had to.
Right, not because you wanted
paying
to.
for a slug burger? What the
Right.
hell is wrong with you?
It's like these idiots drinking PBR and thinking it's not fucking swill. It's PBR, dick. We got jobs to not have to drink PBR.
I like that cheap beer though.
Ah, you're awful.
That's that.
That's right. I did not miss Vic Henley. That's right. Remind yourself. Note to self.
Well,
Falstaff?
my big pet peeve is when a restaurant says aged beef on it.
Oh.
All beef is aged.
Right.
Okay. Why Carl gasp when I say that is because what we love is dry aged beef,
Right.
and that's different from regular beef.
Yes.
Right.
It is very.
And dry aged beef is what you get in the top steakhouses. It's what they cook in the 4-star restaurants. It's not like other beef. It's much more expensive. It's a lot better, and I'm about to tell you why. All beef needs to be aged after you've dispatched the animal in order to make it tender. So it takes like 3 weeks to age it. And the way that beef used to always be aged was they would hang the carcass, wait 3 weeks, come back. The enzymes in that animal have softened the flesh, and then you can eat that as a nice juicy steak or whatever you're doing with it.
Nick, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
How did they figure that out back in the day?
I think that it was really just like you've killed an animal, right? There's 3 of you. You've got this 2,000-pound auroch, which is the ancestor to the cow. And what are you going to do? Like you make a couple of pelts, you get this meat, and they probably were like, well, let's just leave it in the cave.
So
yeah.
Basically
what
keep
it
it
is.
out of the sun.
So they have all this beef. So I would assume they eat it at first thinking, oh, we got to eat it fresh, but there's still more left over. And they probably somewhere along the way realized, oh my God, this thing's been sitting around 2-3 weeks and it's even better than when
and
we
think
first
about
started
like,
eating this thing.
These people had so much shit to do. They were dumb, right? So the first thing they did was probably take the neck out and do a dance for some sun god because they caught this stupid thing in the first
well,
place.
it was definitely a
So it probably takes 3 weeks for them to do it first, drawing their bullshit on the cave and everything by the time they got to eat.
Look, every time we sit down and eat a plate, right, there was a Darwinian reduction. People ate meat that went rancid and died.
Right.
The next person came by, didn't age it quite that way, but died another way. Like that reduction killed like hundreds of thousands of people died, right, to get us to the point where we can eat beef. Dry age, great flavor. Like, so, at least when you sit down for a steak, think about all the idiots that died to get us to that point.
Right.
But, it must have just been a process of elimination, right? In the same way, and who knew that it would actually improve the product? But think about grape juice, which is preserved wine. Think about, duck confit, which is like long cooked duck.
And what,
Like the longer you take these things from death, whether it's cheese or wine or meat, like the flavors become more profound, they become more intense, and they become different, right?
I absolutely. It starts to tell a story.
Yeah,
a
exactly.
Whole different story.
A whole different story.
The one thing I want to tell everybody that I've seen across the country in lower end restaurants and middle all restaurants. CAB, when you see on a menu, certified Angus beef, doesn't mean it's good. It just means that it's an Angus cow. Please stop it. It's crazy. It's like blue pig. Okay, thank you, but it doesn't matter. Follow the things. It's either prime or choice or select, and you got the no roll, which is my favorite. No roll is like sometimes it can get
That's
a little
prisoners. That's what the prisoners eat.
yeah. And then I worked at a restaurant once, and we used to do a Cuban steak, and it was like a palomilla steak. And this guy came to sell me dairy cow meat. I never saw it before. So they would kill these old.
Gray.
It's gray. Oh my God. This cow, I mean, I'm sure they killed it with a pencil. It was so old.
In the eye, you stabbed it right.
No, he just said, "I'm going to kill you now."
I was like, you lost me for a second.
Fucking Vic.
Totally from
No,
Alabama.
I literally thought
Right
you
in
were.
the eye. Get him in here. Bleed out through the eye.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what you're thinking.
That's exactly what.
That thing will bleed like a sieve. Turn him over. He's bleeding, Mom.
Well, now you're moving into into the steakhouse category. I don't know if we have time, but
Oh my God.
give me
What
a
is-
few things about steakhouses.
Yeah,
Like,
Nick.
you know what my favorite meat is?
What is it?
Filet mignon.
That's not a meat. That's a cut of beef.
You know that, right?
What do you mean? No, I'm serious. I order filet mignon. It's like
Okay, but all right.
tenderloin.
So, but why do you order filet mignon?
Because he got the baby teeth.
He doesn't, dog.
The baby wants softy steak.
I lean on the side of healthy. So
How is that? That can't be for health.
so. Well, it's better than all the fat in
He
it.
says it's the leanest.
Look, a steak with all the fat. I'm not going to sit here. Yeah, of course, it's amazing, but over the years, just to stay a little healthier, I will, if I go to a steak, 9 out of 10 times I go to a steak joint, I'll order the filet mignon, and then I'll go get hog crazy on a porterhouse or something the 10th time.
Well, but but hold on.
Go ahead. We'll tag team.
A
it. You
porterhouse
go
has
first.
filet in it,
Yeah, no, I know that.
right? So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
eating the filet either way.
the filet part of the porterhouse. Yes.
I mean, it's true that it is, it's leaner than any other piece of meat, and that's also why me and Carl don't like it, because fat is where you get the flavor in beef.
Right.
And if it has no fat, which most filet doesn't have, you're not going to get a lot of flavor. Filet is really a cut that the chef has to bring flavor to. That's why the French do all these sauces like béarnaise and all these
old
poivre and these
the
really
peppercorn,
rich,
yeah.
Right,
these
right.
mother sauces that are really rich and bring unctuousness to the flavor to the steak itself. But a good rib steak has that in abundance anyway.
So let's talk about the healthy part. First of all,
Yeah, because this is clearly an expert on health right here.
I'm the picture of health.
Oh, look at the time. I
should
got to
be
go.
dead. I'm an authority on health because I should be dead.
That is true. As your attorney,
I'm like a guy that fell out of a plane and lived at the flying out of the plane and lived seminar. So fucking listen to this, Hope. First of all, I don't know if it's healthier because number one, you can't eat it by itself. You got to eat it with something because it's so dry, right?
Yes.
Number two, on ribeye, say you grill or roast a ribeye at 600, 800 degrees, all that fat that was in the middle of the steak is gone now.
Right.
It's rendered.
It's rendered, and that's one of the things that make it great. It creates these little air pockets in a ribeye because there was nothing to replace that fat that was rendered at that high temperature. So that makes it delicious.
It's also, and not to delve too much into the geekiness of nutrition, but the concept of fat being bad for you and causing fat, like we don't, when we eat, like we're going to get fat from eating sugar. Sugar is instant energy for us. We take that and we're like, okay, let's store that as fat.
Right.
But it's not like we store beef fat as human fat. We have to convert that into our own fat, right?
Right.
And protein is actually is a fairly efficient form of nutrition compared to like, to other things,
Candy.
right? The candy. Well, candy, the problem with candy is actually that it's too nutritious.
There's no problems with candy. Vic.
No, you're the problem.
Yeah. The problem is that you're bashing candy. This is not the forum for that.
Candy proves there's a God.
So what we're suggesting is if you go to a steakhouse, unless it's Carl and I, it's a regular occurrence for us. I've had steak the last 3 nights, but generally most people go for once a week, once a month. Don't go there and equivocate. Don't
You might as well enjoy.
You might as well get a proper steak.
Because you're not wrong. I mean,
look, a filet.
I drown my filet mignon in all the steak sauce.
Right. So steak sauce has a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
Really?
Right. You're adding
But if I
calories.
have a porterhouse, to Nick's point,
You
no,
don't do that.
No,
There's
I don't.
no reason to.
No,
Right.
maybe a little dab, maybe, but in
But
general,
it's usually self-sourced.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's based
Absolutely.
in its
Delicious.
own fat.
I think we're running out of time, but there's I want to end with you hitting us with a couple more of like the really crazy shit with restaurants. I'll start with one. My wife, she will not send anything back, and I have no problem sending something back if I don't like it, if I think it's undercooked or whatever. And she's like, "Why would you do that?" And we all think you send someone back, the chef is in the back spitting on it.
Well,
What's the myth there?
Let me ask you this: if you think the chef would do that, why would you eat in his restaurant in the first place?
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Good point. That's it, everybody.
All right, everybody.
All right, I'll see you later. Let's go
Opie's
eat.
head exploded.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Because in the end, they want you to come back, obviously.
well, they do, and the fact is that, like,
And
don't
if
take
there's a
this
big-
disgruntled.
If there's a big snot rocket on the top of your salmon when they bring it back to you, you're not coming back.
Look, there's
No, I get it.
There's two
yeah.
things at play here. One, the chef isn't cooking a steak. There's a guy out there. That guy is getting reamed out by the chef because that guy's making the chef look bad.
Right.
That chef wants to please you, right?
So this is interesting. So you should never be afraid to send your food
I don't
back.
think you should be afraid because not only are you doing yourself a favor, you're doing everyone else who's going to order a steak from that guy a favor because that guy's not going to fuck up the next steak.
Right. All right, you guys both give me one more. One that'll just kind of blow the mind.
I'll tell you one thing. One thing that I saw, I wasn't in the restaurant, but most people eat salmon, right? And one thing that blew my mind was I went to a salmon farm, and I see this lady shows up with a color wheel. They have them penned. She comes up with the color wheel, and she looks at the fish. She moves the color wheel. She checks it. She comes back with a bucket of orange dye and just throws it in the water. And now the salmon flesh meat is orange. It had nothing to do because salmon are orange because of the krill of this little miniature animal, and that makes them orange. Right?
Same reason flamingos are pink.
Right, but but in this pen they don't turn orange; they're gray inside, and literally just dumped a 5-gallon bucket. So the lady's talking to us about how beautiful the salmon are, and this is going on behind me. I'm like, lady, what the hell's going on up there?
Why is that person pouring orange dye?
And it was like blood orange, the color, and you can smell the dye. Like, imagine to turn a living animal another color on the inside, not on the outside,
There
on
you go.
the inside.
Right.
And then I started looking at it, and the fish are so sloppily bred that you start seeing, like I saw salmons with 2 gills.
3 eyes.
Like an extra little, like where an eye would start to grow. Sea lice in the gills. I mean, just sea lice, let me tell you, are one of the scariest looking things you've ever seen. It's like a clear tick, and it has all these, it's disgusting.
I mean,
And that's what you're
generally,
eating when you're eating all this.
farm fish is not good. I mean,
No,
especially farm shrimp, which a lot of low quality shrimp is.
Oh my God.
It's all cooked it's all made in the Far East. There's like no environmental standards. It's not good
And I'll
stuff.
tell you this, and you won't want to hear this, but you're not going to like. A lot of places, they'll pen the shrimp. They'll keep the shrimp next to where the sewers give out because they get free food. All human shit and everything coming out into the water. That's where you put the shrimp, and they grow pretty good for free. You know?
They go to town.
Huh?
They go to town on our feces.
Oh, they love it.
Come on.
Of course. But this is China. That's not here.
Why wouldn't you?
I'm telling
Both
you.
these fuckers know exactly what they're talking about.
Come on was like, come on, like, oh my God.
Okay, sorry.
Jesus,
Once again,
Vic.
I'm on the literal side of the room.
and if you look at the prices on shrimp, it's unbelievable. You'll see a 16.20, which means 16 to 20 per pound, which is the average shrimp that you eat.
I don't devein shrimp.
You do now.
Yeah, no kidding. I never did before. I never
I remember
cared
doing
about
top
that.
to bottom. They have 2 veins, one on the bottom, one on the top.
Wow.
Most shrimp that you'll get from China in a 16-20 size is probably $5.50 a pound to $7.50 a pound. Real fresh shrimp will probably cost you about $13. So let me tell you something. If that much difference, if the gully is that deep between one and another, there is some serious shit going on to get you shrimp at $5.
There's a serious quality gulf between the two.
Exactly.
Wow.
Big.
Nick, Solaris, give us one more that'll blow our mind to end this. Anything from restaurants or whatever, something.
Fakeness, false.
Yeah. Something will just make you go, ugh.
Oh, let's talk about fake ass olive oil.
Olive oil?
Olive oil's all bullshit.
Somewhere Rachel Ray is very upset
Actually,
right now.
and
Make it
you know, we make fun of people with nut allergies because that's what we do. We make fun of anyone who has any kind of.
Well, most of those people should perish.
Well, if they eat olive oil, there's a chance they will because a lot of olive oils are actually fake. They have other oils in them, like hazelnut oil or like cheaper oils, right? And this is a big problem, even in places like France and Spain and Italy that have really good, really top-notch oils. This is something you probably faced a lot, right? When you were a chef, like sourcing, because obviously with the chef, you're trying to get your food costs as low as possible.
Right.
People want olive oil, especially in salads, right? People are worried about health. I'm sure you probably,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
you're always thinking about olive oil over another kind of oil, but a lot of the times it's no healthier because it has other things in it.
And I know a little bit about this because they did a show on the nut allergy, and some lady died because there was some kind of nut in the fake olive oil,
which is
or
meant to be
whatever.
100% olive oil.
I forgot what kind of restaurant. It was some kind of Asian restaurant or whatever. It might have been a Chinese restaurant or something. It was a big case. And the person died because they said, look, we have a nut allergy. They're like, no problem. But this guy had so many restaurants in his chain that he started cutting corners and he started using the fake shit that had, some of this nut-based stuff in the oils. And that's how this person died, thinking they were completely safe in this restaurant.
Yeah, that's lethal. You got to be careful. Funny, one time, San Marzano tomatoes. Everyone knows what a San Marzano.
Of course. Tell them, though.
Okay. Hey, guys.
Tell those plebs on the other side of the room.
So San Marzano tomatoes, it grows in this little town, and it's very famous. And the San Marzano tomatoes are famous because they grow in volcanic soil. And, it's one of the richest, best tomatoes. So I'm there where they make the tomato, where they grow the tomato. And I'm like, I asked this Italian guy, I go, is this all the tomatoes? He's like, yeah, these are all tomatoes. This is San Marzano. He goes, yeah. Those tomatoes over there, that's all the San Marzano tomatoes? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh. I'm like, how possible do they have a can of this in every supermarket from California where I can throw a rock from one side of San Marzano to the other? And I kept asking, I'm like, are there more tomatoes
Somewhere
over there?
Over the other side of the hill?
No, those are sheep. I said, okay. I said, what's over there? Oh, that's sheep too. This is the tomatoes. I said, this is the San Marzano. I said, yeah, those are your tomatoes. Okay. I couldn't believe it. There wasn't enough to fill up one Whole Foods there. I'm like, where are they bringing these tomatoes from?
And how can they get away with calling it that when it's not?
Because it probably not really saying anything. They turned the name San Marzano into a brand. So that's San Marzano. It has nothing to do with the town. But you're buying this shit and it doesn't even in it.
And especially in Italy, they'll have things that are considered DOP, right? And that's
DOP.
a stamp of authenticity.
Right.
Wow.
It's like putting it's like being registered.
Exactly.
What about dumb pumpkins? Stupid, dumb pumpkins and pumpkin puree and all that horse shit.
Well, I revile the pumpkin spice season because it's made its way into beers and everything else at this point.
It's in everything.
Breakfast cereals and
I got you beat, and you can look it up. Pumpkin flavored, was it flavored? Scented. Pumpkin scented toilet paper. Beat that one.
I'm just flummoxed. I don't.
You win.
You can't beat that one.
Right.
That is you got it. That's the de facto end of Western civilization. Right? Like there is no.
That's when I was like, enough.
No, but a lot of that, like you see those Libby's pumpkin cans that everyone uses to make their pumpkin. That's not pumpkin.
It's
That's
not.
winter squash.
Yeah. It's not even pumpkin.
It's not even pumpkin.
It's cheap horse squash. We call it, you feed a horse. It's awful. And they put pumpkin flavor in food color.
And they sweeten it and food color.
Right.
And because you don't know, you're putting it in a pie crust and you're putting whipped cream on it and cinnamon and all
Of
this
course.
other stuff, right?
I remember as the first time a pastry chef made me a real pumpkin pie. They're like,
Never
what do you think? I'm
tasted-
like, this is shit.
This tastes like a pumpkin.
I'm like, let's go get the one from A&P. That one was awesome. They're like, no,
really good.
that's not pumpkin. I'm like, all right. They're like, no, chef, that's winter squash that they sweeten. This is real pumpkin.
That's what I want.
They're like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't like pumpkin. That was it.
I like the pumpkin seed. I like the Mexican salsa. What do you call it? The sickle
Oh,
pack?
pepitas.
Or they're sickle pack. It's like a salsa that they
It's
make.
delicious.
Yeah. I'm not saying it right, but
We got to wrap up because we rented a little studio time today. But look at that. Read it and weep. Pumpkin scented or
Oh, my
flavored
God.
toilet paper.
That is.
But
Carl and I believe
I'm
you.
going to send that to all my enemies.
but I just beat it with this as I was looking it up. Read that, Nick, for everybody.
Oh no, I see it.
Read that,
That
Nick.
is glorious.
This is how we end
16
this.
pumpkin spiced Tampax.
They put pumpkin flavor or
How does that?
Tampons.
Well, that would be like a sweet and sour because
Oh, good night. Good night.
Look what's under. Look what's under it.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe. Share this episode with a foodie pal, unless you'd rather the snob pay top dollar for bullshit aesthetics like waterfalls and golden Buddhas while eating crap dishes of fraudulent Kobe beef and fake cheese. And give us a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts. Visit OpieRadio.com for merch. Throw on a hat or a cool Carl's Creepy Cabin t-shirt and piss off your friends because they don't get the inside joke. Fuck them. That's what they get for not listening to Opie Radio. The Westwood One Podcast Network. The Tom Bernard Podcast.
A new study out of the Netherlands found that short man syndrome really does exist. The researchers found that guys under 5'7" would act more aggressively in social experiments than other men who were taller.
They should call it the Pesci syndrome.
He's about 5'1", isn't he?
His whole character is striking out.
The Tom Bernard Podcast. Download and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and the Westwood One Podcast app. Free from the Westwood One Podcast Network.